Hello guys, welcome to another video. Now I wanted to make this one because I've seen quite a bit of discussion in the community about how much total physical damage shift you can obtain now after all of the damage taken as nerfs in patch 3.25. And within that discussion is quite a lot of misconception about how damage taken as and monster damage conversion modifiers stack together. And I think this is especially important to talk about now that the Elementalist has a notable that converts monster damage. And of course, this league we also have Mercenaries, with a lot of them running around with Calm's Binding, which also converts monster damage. So let's quickly cover that first. Monster damage conversion modifiers do not stack additively with damage taken as modifiers. They're instead multiplicative because they are calculated at two different stages of the calculation. Some examples of modifiers that force monster damage conversion are the Elementalist Shaper of Flames, Calm's Binding, and Pyroshock Clasp. These modifiers convert monster damage as if those monsters had that modifier. It's essentially an offensive modifier for the monster, and it's calculated during their damage calculation for the hit. Then there's damage taken as, which is a defensive modifier that applies to your character specifically. These modifiers do not interact directly with monsters in any way, they only function for damage taken to your character. Some examples of damage taken modifiers are on the Lightning Coil and on Dawnbreaker. Now when combining damage taken as and monster conversion modifiers together, this is an example outcome. An Elementalist with Shaper of Flames ignites a monster, converting 40% of their physical damage to fire damage. The Elementalist is equipped with the Lightning Coil, making them take 50% of physical hit damage as lightning damage. The monster hits the Elementalist for 1000 base physical damage, of which 40% is converted to fire, resulting in 600 physical damage and 400 fire damage. Once the hit has made it past any existing avoidance layers, the damage taken as modifier on the Lightning Coil goes to work, shifting 50% of the physical damage to be taken as lightning damage, resulting in a final hit damage total of 400 fire damage, 300 lightning damage, and 300 physical damage. You can see that by combining monster damage conversion modifiers with damage taken as, the result is essentially that they diminish the effectiveness of each other due to the multiplicative nature of how they stack. In the example, there was 40% conversion and 50% damage taken as, but the result was that 70% of the total damage was taken as elemental, and 30% still remained as physical. So due to this, it's usually much more effective to focus on one or the other rather than combining these mechanics together. Okay, so with that out of the way, I want to discuss the topic of this video. The only way in the current patch, that's patch 3.26, that you can reach 100% of physical hit damage taken as other damage types. In 3.25, this wasn't possible after the nerfs, but now with a new item added to the game, it's possible once more. But I'll warn you, it's not pretty. Also, to be clear here, I'm only taking into account what's possible in a temporary league. I'm not talking about standard league here, so no legacy gear is included. The first piece of the puzzle is of course Lightning Coil, for 50% of physical hit damage taken as lightning damage. Then we have a Conqueror influenced helmet. This can be Redeemer for taken as cold, Warlord for taken as fire, or Crusader for taken as lightning. The Chaos version doesn't exist on helmets for Hunter, it only appears on body armors. So these modifiers normally roll up to 10% on a tier 1 modifier, but you're going to need a max rolled elevated modifier to reach 100%, so you need 13% on the helmet, bringing the total up to 63%. Then there's the newcomer this league, Bound by Destiny, which I've already covered in several videos. This new unique jewel can roll physical damage taken as elemental modifiers on the 4 influence item bonus portion of the jewel. And again, this is Redeemer for taken as cold, Warlord for taken as fire, and Crusader for taken as lightning. The Hunter modifier is elemental taken as chaos, so that's not what we want here. To activate these modifiers, you need to be equipped with 4 items of the specific influence type. So to make things easier, you'll likely want the same type as the helmet, so that it already counts as one of the influenced items equipped. Now each of these modifiers roll between 5 to 10%, and the jewel is limited to 1, so you can only use one of these modifiers. And to reach 100%, you once again will need exactly the max roll here. It must be 10%, bringing the total up to 73%. Then, the final piece of the puzzle. Darkscorn. I said this wasn't going to be pretty, and this is obviously extremely build limiting, but following the nerfs in 3.25, Darkscorn is now the only way to reach 100% physical hit damage taken as other types. Now, Darkscorn is a unique bow that was once upon a time an exclusive Legion League drop, but ever since patch 3.14 it has been a core drop pool unique. This bow has the modifier 25% of physical damage from hits taken as chaos damage. But hold on, that brings the total up to 98%. So where does the remaining 2% come from? Tempering Orbs. Yes, the Darkscorn modifier has both the physical and chaos tags, which means that Tempering Orb enchantments that increase the magnitude of physical or chaos modifiers allow this modifier to scale up. You will need to hit an enchantment of at least 8% increased physical or chaos modifier magnitudes, which will improve the modifier to exactly 27% of physical hit damage taken as chaos damage, bringing the total to exactly 100%. Now obviously this isn't an ideal setup offensively. You need to find a build for Darkscorn which isn't ideal, and keep in mind that you also need to use the Lightning Coil and a Conqueror Helmet, so you also can't benefit from Eldritch Implicits in those slots either, which is a big loss too. But defensively it can be very strong. There's potential there for Transcendence of course, though you do need to be mindful of elemental damage over time due to that minus maximum resistance. Now going back to Bound by Destiny for a moment, it's important to mention that to satisfy the requirements for the 4 equipped influence items, remember that you can utilize influenced unique items. To do that you need to chant an influenced base of the correct type for the unique that you want. But the unique must be able to be chanced, so it can't be a boss exclusive unique, it must be in the core drop pool. Now in the case of both the Lightning Coil and Darkscorn, these items can be chanced, so you can use influenced versions of these uniques. Okay, one last thing to mention. Earlier I said that this is the only way in temporary leagues to reach 100% of physical hit damage taken as other types. Now technically that's not actually true. That's because the new Wine of the Prophet unique flask can roll 2 modifiers which each provide physical hit damage taken as modifiers, which could be combined with other modifiers elsewhere to reach 100%, but that's an entirely unreliable method. There's a whole bunch of different divination buffs that flask can draw upon use, and so you simply cannot rely on it. If you want to find out more about that flask and how it can actually brick your build, check out my previous video on that item from earlier in the league. But that's going to be it for this video. Thanks for watching, and as always, stay tuned and stay safe.